All right, cool. I'm seeing some friends coming on, and I guess we can get started. I mean, it's been an exhausting week, like in the political world. So I don't know if everyone's just resting, but you know, we can chug through our agenda as we do, and then if other folks want to join us, we can do that. Yes, we're 5 minutes in, and so with class time, that's usually when I call it and we start. So, all right. So number one on our agenda is, I guess we're already at that time where we're planning the October agenda, which is kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really?
I put it on there and I was like, is it too early? I was like,
yeah.
I don't think it is. I think we have to at least start mapping it out.
We do. So, I mean, we know because we've been talking in terms of our timeline as a consortium, kind of what the main event, I guess, of October is going to be. And the expectation is that every work group is able to substantively offer, you know, what direction is your work group going in? You know, what right now for this upcoming legislative session, budget, you know, budget decision-making moment are you looking to accomplish? So those are the reports we're going to be looking for all of our work groups. So that's going to be the large chunk of the agenda, right?
Mm-hmm. So Tizzy, so just kind of thinking it through, because I've been asked this by my co-chairs, what exactly you want to share, because like, I'll give you my educator update really quick while we're at it. We're still doing some of the stakeholder engagement and getting feedback. So we won't necessarily be at the point of saying, we can possibly give some implementation steps, but we're not going to be 100% there yet. Sure. So is it okay just to give an update of like, or just say, here's what the recommendations are, and
I mean, I think as substantive as possible. I mean, because our goal is that in December, we're 100% there collectively as a consortium. So, you know, that in December that we're approving the final design of recommendations coming out of the work groups, so that then they become recommendations coming from the full consortium, which I guess we need to kind of, I guess maybe there might be interim steps. Haley, I don't know if we want to talk through that. So if we're presenting something in October that offers consortium members an opportunity to respond, to offer feedback in case tweaks are needed in direction or the meat on the bones, you know, that's what October is about. So the more substantive what we have in October is, the better chance we have of that recommendation ending up final enough for the consortium to approve it to become, you know, our policy agenda. So yeah, I think as much detail as we have, and be thinking about the kinds of questions I guess you would like consortium members to answer. If there are particular things where you're uncertain, where it would be useful for consortium members and the public to weigh in, I think this is the big opportunity to do that.
What is the date of the October meeting, the large group meeting?
No,
October 22nd.
Okay. And
from 5 to 7 p.m.
Jason, I know you're on. Did you send out an Outlook invite for everybody, for all the work groups, like for everyone? That's something that I had asked, because I know that other people who are in our subcommittee, so we receive the Outlook invites for our subcommittee meetings, but not for at this time for the large group meetings. So that would be helpful to make sure everyone receives those.
Yeah, have we done that? Did we, and we set our December date too, right?
Mm-hmm. I usually send out meeting reminders 2 weeks in advance, but I can do it more in advance. And so I'll be the one that sends out like the big meeting reminders for the consortium meetings to everyone.
You send that as an Outlook invite?
Sure, I can try.
Consider doing that?
Yeah.
That would be lovely.
To our cumulative mailing list of all of our work group members and consortium members is what you're asking. I think that's a good idea, because I'm now looking at my calendar and realizing I don't have that day held. So I think, yeah, the sooner we make sure everyone has that time held, make sure nobody schedules anything else. So I guess, you know, since we know when it is, we might as well. And we have do we do a 5:30 or a 6 p.m. start time?
I had it as 5 to 7.
5 to 7, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So that's the bulk of the agenda. And of course, we'll open it up to other planning group members of other items. I think one thing we talked about, of course, in August, we started our conversation with our presentation from the Office of Equity and Innovation in terms of, you know, offering us a lot of definitions, including, you know, digging into like this discussion of anti-racism. I don't know if that's something we want to do again in this fullness, but I know that it seemed like we got a lot of traction with the first piece from the Office of Innovation and Equity, Equity Innovation, on kind of the structure, the evolving structure and priorities that they're doing, and the kind of the check-in on CARES Act funding. That seemed to be an opportunity that people appreciated. I'm happy to get new feedback if folks agree, or that perhaps there's room to kind of have a standing opportunity to offer Jim Simmons to update us and for us to ask him questions on those types of things. Any thoughts on that?
I think it would be nice to have, but I want to think through, like, if each work group is reporting out, and then we'd like to give consortium members time to give feedback and ask questions, that's
Mhm.
probably like a half an hour sort of allotted for each of those. That's
Yes.
what I would imagine. You know what I mean? So like if there's 3 work groups and they're
Mhm.
all taking half an hour, and that might
Right.
be a lot, but it you know.
I think that's good to allow for, though. And I think, I guess and I would share the concern that, you know, if we put that, like, say we put that at the front, you know, because there's a lot to dig into with the office and CARES Act funding types of conversations, that it could sort of run amok and end up taking more time. And I mean, so potentially we could keep room for it at the back if there's time. And then if there's not, you know, perhaps there's just a written something that he can offer us if we have specific questions. But I don't know. To me, it makes sense as the consortium focused on equity for us to have that kind of standing link and opportunity for the public to understand what the State Department focusing on equity is doing. But maybe putting it at the end if there's time. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Hi, this is Kristen. I'm just a member of the public here, spelled on the state public meeting calendar. Tizzy, I just sent you a message regarding the CARES Act funding.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, yes. Oh, I see it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, correct.
They only
I think
kept 10% of the 43 million, and the rest went directly to districts. So if you want to report out on what districts spent, that may be, that's like, I just want you to understand that they only kept a small portion of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's sort of what we were asking them to help us account for. And I don't think we kind of just started to get into that conversation, I think, in August. So, you know, perhaps that's something we could ask them to give us a better detail on, like in written form. And then if there's time for him to explain or answer questions, we could do that. But I do think, yeah. No, that's helpful. I don't know if that made it into our specific questions that came out of the meeting, Haley. Did it? Not really. But
yeah, I think it's just thinking about realistically, if we give each work group co-chairs or whoever's presenting like 15 minutes to present and 10 minutes for questions or something like that, like if it because then we're at about an hour and a half if we do that. So we'd have, and then we have, you know, our front end of just roll call. That doesn't take long, but then then you have to public comment, so you get smaller and smaller amount of time for Jim to present, which I think it would be great to hear an update from him. But I just want to, you know, I don't want it to feel rushed like Monique sort of probably, you know, maybe they felt.
No, I don't think we want to get into that. I don't think we want to get into that. I know we've talked about doing follow-up with her specifically sort of outside the context of our regular meeting, and I definitely think that's the way to go. Unless anyone disagrees, which we also need to follow up on. But I mean, I would maybe sort of put Jim in brackets and sort of think about if there's, you know, if there's a way maybe to offer a written update, and then if people have questions, and probably our public comment would need to be, I would hope, would need to be more substantial. Maybe people will want to respond to what they hear coming out of the work groups. So yeah, it sounds like roughed up, just the introductory stuff that we always do, and then 30 minutes for each work group. Put Jim tentatively in there, and then public comment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, does that sound like a good rough start to everybody? Any question? Okay. All right, let's go into, Kelly, you kind of gave the work group update for the educators already. And stakeholder engagement is what is now occurring. Anyone have any questions for Kelly or any, I'm not sure if we have any other members from that work group here. Okay. All right, so funding and governance, Haley, Eugene, I don't know if we've got significant changes since last week, but anything you want to mention on that front in preparation for next week's meeting?
Good morning. No real changes. We're actually we had a great team meeting. Just a couple of us on, what was that? Jesus, time flies. 2 days
It was
ago.
yesterday.
Oh my gosh. So
I think it was.
I think it was something like that. So, but needless to say, we had a great meeting. We're reaching out after our previous committee meeting. We're focusing on, obviously, referendum reform. We're bringing in like Representative Earl Jakes, meeting with some of the constituent groups that actually came to our previous committee meeting. I know Senator Sturgeon, there's a group that Senator Sturgeon works with from the Christina School District. And another is a group of moms and dads from different districts, but a lot of them were centered in Christina. So not too many changes, just doing our work, and we'll definitely have updates as we move forward.
Great. I look forward to checking out the meeting. Of course, we have two going on simultaneously, which is always a fun night for us. Social determinants, I see Ray, Jason, do you guys want to, and probably not much has changed since last week either, but you want to fill us in on where we're at for that meeting?
Good morning.
Morning.
The smaller teams are to be working in preparation for our meeting on September the 24th. Dawn has shared some really important information with the two people that will be teaming up with her around early learning. I don't know, Dawn, if you want to give a high level of the information that you've asked us to review.
Sure, thank you. So I did share information with the work group regarding the preschool development grant. Last year, or at the end of 2018, Delaware received federal funds to do an extensive needs assessment looking at all birth to 5 services programs, programs for, or access to services for families. That needs assessment was implemented in 2019, and a strategic plan. So Delaware has had a strategic plan for early childhood. This will be our either 3rd or 4th, and the strategic plan lasts, the duration is about 5 years. So the new strategic plan will be released soon. The recommendations from the strategic plan are based on information from the needs assessment. So I can share the link to all the findings for everyone, but we'll really be looking at that because the recommendations that are within that from the needs assessment are very much aligned with the kind of work that we would like to do with Reading Consortium.
Great.
Thank you. It's really rich information. I'm taking my time to go through it. Thank you, Dawn.
Absolutely, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I participated in a national webinar yesterday presented by the National Urban League on social emotional learning, and I will be sharing that information with our work group as well. One of the main takeaways is that when we speak about cognitive and non-cognitive learning, all learning is social emotional. And so these boxes that we're attempting to put, when the brain feels emotion and experiences emotion no less than analytical kinds of stimuli. So I'm going to make certain that the National Urban League is doing some really good webinars in the education equity space. So I'll share as much of that information as possible. They, when they do the webinar, they don't make the content available right away, but we're to get it within a week. So we'll get that out. There's also a Dina Simmons, who's with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. They shared research and articles by Ms. Simmons as a scholar and some others as well. So we'll share that information.
Good morning. This is Tika. Just to piggyback on what Ray said, Parent Information Center PIC, we're doing a series of social emotional workshops for families as well. And so last night was also our second, and we've partnered with Terry Lawler to do this as well. And so I can email out the schedule. I think there's about 4 more. We had a 6-week series of them.
Nice. Excellent. And I know Matt is on as well. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think Ray and Jeff have things very much under control for the working group, and they're on course as expected.
Awesome. And Tika, you had the question about legislators. Obviously, we know there's some shifts happening due to the primary that just passed. And I think Haley pretty much nailed it. I mean, I think, of course, all of these folks are, of course, retain their seats until the general election passes, and we know what's going to happen there. So, they are still representatives and so on and so forth. And then also, I think, obviously, citizens and in some cases subject matter experts based on the work that they've done. So I think to that extent makes sense that we'll continue some conversations, and then as we go to start looking at how we're actually going to accomplish legislative priorities, that will obviously be more engaged with folks who are seated to figure out a path forward. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay. So research underway. Any updates, Haley, on the referendum reform research?
Not really. We're just keeping that there because it's sort of, what we're doing for the funding work group. I can always add other people's sort of what research they're doing. I just put it there because that's what I know that I'm doing. But it's interesting. We have a good PowerPoint queued up for our meeting next week that I think is informative about just what is a referendum, what are the significance of referendums, and why would reform why are we talking about it? So
right, so that's the main thrust of next week's meeting for funding and governance, correct?
Yep, it's sort of intro discussion about that, and then we're going to do breakout sessions and hear from the work group members, what they think about. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I was going to say it's a pretty hot topic. Are we planning to kind of do a graphic like we did for the last meeting to encourage people to listen in?
Yep. I have that ready. I just need to schedule it on the Facebook.
Great. Awesome. And update from Kelly. October 6th is the next educator work group meeting. So folks know. Right on. All right, cool. So, of course, we've continued to sort of hone in on some of our public engagement discussions. How do we improve on that? One of our top priorities was, actually fully responding to questions that we receive either in the chat during the Zoom, because that's, a new dimension of public meetings that we're trying to better handle. And also, any particular questions that come up in public comment. So Haley and I took our first crack at sitting down and combing through what came up in the course of the meeting and working towards generating, sort of a, I guess, not frequently asked questions, but asked questions document that we can offer after every meeting. So the goal is that after our public meetings that we would post up something like that. And so, of course, I think in our experience this time, most of the questions are things where we, probably reached out to someone at the department and said, can you help us give some clarity that we couldn't offer immediately? And so it seems like you're getting a good response.
Secretary Bunting answered the same day. I was like, oh my gosh, surprised. But
so of course, hopefully, folks will see those responses and understand that, our goal isn't just to kind of let a question come and go, but to actually give people the information that they're seeking. And so I think that's good. Anybody have any questions about that? And so what is the Google form?
So I put this on there. Alexis and I were trying to figure out how to do a similar thing for the funding work group, and it was just an idea. So we, I have it pulled up somewhere. I was gonna just, somewhere, maybe, yeah. I'll do a new share, 1 second. Can everyone see that screen now?
Yes.
So we're gonna send this same Google form out after every funding work group meeting and just sort of do the same thing. Like if there was anything that didn't get answered, send out this Google form, and then we'll ask them to pick which meeting they're responding to, of the meetings through December. And then ask them if they're a member of the public or a consortium member, what was their question or their comment, and then if they'd like to sign up for the mailing list.
That's great.
Get their email. So that was just something we were trying to figure out a way to
And then Haley, where will the responses be published for people to see them? And will it be like a running list of like all of our answers, or just, like meeting by meeting or something like that?
Good question. We haven't gotten that far. So like the Google form collects your responses if you get any, and you can put it into an Excel sheet. So that would probably be how I would start, and then maybe clean it up for some sort of public, like post it on the website or the Facebook or something like that. But open to any ideas about how to do that.
Definitely. Like one of the things we had talked about when we met on this was like, okay, right, we sort of have that running spreadsheet to kind of keep track of the types of questions we're getting and whether or not we're getting answers. And then like, can we make like a little memo that gets posted kind of like with the meeting materials? So like coming off that meeting, and then have it sort of linked under the agenda where people can easily find it. Does that, I mean, but I'm open to ideas for sure.
I think they did something like that similarly when they had the working groups, the reopening working groups. So then when people were posting or having conversations in the chat, it was like another hyperlink from their webpage under agenda and meeting minutes.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
That sounds good. I think we were on that track without having actually referenced that, but so maybe we can take a look at that, Haley, and see even the format that they use for posting the responses. Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then of course we know that, Educators Work Group has its own public engagement activities occurring. And then of course we'll look forward, I'm sure Social Determinants will have some of its own ideas of how to pursue that for their feedback. We haven't necessarily talked too specifically. I mean, we've talked generally about engaging the public once we have sort of a clearer path forward. So if anyone has any, what thoughts on that, with the particular concerns of making sure folks know that we're putting forward some concrete proposals that, for which feedback is welcome, and also making sure that we're getting feedback from impacted communities, doing it in an inclusive way. So I think we're still open for suggestions on those as well. So if any members of the public have any thoughts and wish to offer them, you're welcome to do that. Anything else on public engagement, questions or thoughts before we move into public comment? Nope. Okay, cool. All right, well, chugging along, and a lot going on next week. So let's see, we have a few folks here. Did anyone want to offer a public comment? Feel free to raise your hand, say something in the chat, whatever have you. Okay. Gone. All right, I think we're in good shape. Thank you, everyone. Haley in particular, for, for facilitating our planning meetings, and we'll talk more as we go. Have a good
Sounds
weekend,
good.
everybody.
Thank you. You too.
See ya.
Bye.